very much honored to be here. Okay, excellent. I really appreciate the time that you have given me and the honor that you've given me to come and to talk about something that I'm absolutely passionate about. And I also just wanted to mention something to you that I am very much a simple person. I just like to get to the facts. I like to get crap done. So what you'll find about me is I only wear one set of outfits, just one type of outfit. I only wear jeans and I only wear these shirts. It's interesting. The president of the University of Notre Dame, a priest, and then the provost, they said, one of these days we're going to get you to wear a tie. I have worn a tie at the university 4 times in 5.5 years. And I've probably worn a suit maybe about that same amount of times. So, thank you again for letting me come and talk about something that I'm passionate about, and that is strengthening innovation ecosystems. So I'd love to talk about what that looks like to strengthen the innovation ecosystem here in Guatemala through technology transfer. So this is what we're going to be talking about, and I'll just keep going. This is a little bit about me. So these are some of the companies that I've started. These are some of the companies that I'm currently on the board of. I've also had great experiences working at these various universities and really helping to build innovation ecosystems. The way I like to say it is, as an entrepreneur, I was successful enough that I was able to have a good quality of life, but not enough to retire. So that's why you see me here. So if I had done incredibly well, I would be retired. As a fun side point, it's kind of funny. My brother and my sister retired at 45 in the last couple of years, and I'm just wondering, what's my problem? But that's okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of building this process. So this is a 12-year journey, and don't worry, I'm not going to give you a step-by-step process here. I want to talk a little bit about the journey for myself and others to build this model of innovation ecosystems. And it really all started at the University of Utah. Let me see if this, it doesn't really show up, so never mind. It all really started at the University of Utah. At the University of Utah, I was hired to come in and evaluate technologies and evaluate innovations that are coming from the university. So when we're looking at these great university innovations, something that we realized is that, boy, these innovations are very, very early. And there's a gap between where the technology is and where the technology needs to be, to the point where you can attract an outside organization to take a license, or you can attract an entrepreneur, like many of you out here, in order to commercialize it. I'd like to take a quick second and just ask, how many out there are entrepreneurs? Could you raise your hand? Raise your hand. Okay. We got a few entrepreneurs. All right. Very good. I love it. Thank you. How many of you are with a university? Okay. A few more people. Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. Okay. Now, what I'm curious about is those two groups. How often do you talk? A rhetorical question. Think about that. So when I came into the University of Utah, that was one of my primary responsibilities. They brought me in and they said, hey, James, we kind of suck at this. We need to do a better job. So what we did is we created a system, a process, to evaluate, de-risk, and commercialize technologies. And then that process actually has been implemented at UNLV, University of Texas, San Antonio, Illinois Institute of Technology, and more. In fact, we're seeing it now, Vanderbilt, and a few other locations. And then about 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to collaborate with the Pontifical University of Javeriana in Bogota, dear friends there. And we've been working over the last 8 years to take this system, this process, and install it in Bogota, Colombia. And what's really quite exciting is they've been able to build an innovation ecosystem. They're starting to build an innovation ecosystem. But my friends, building an innovation ecosystem takes a very long time. It's like the old adage of, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now. It takes time to build this. So it's been really fun working with Fanny, my dear friend in Colombia. Also had a chance now, we've been working with Jamaica, University of Technology in Jamaica, helping to implement this system, as well as most recently in Algeria, Sidi Abdullah. Sidi Abdullah is the government of Algeria's effort to create a research university, because at the core of all of this is a research university. So there were some key takeaways. These are the key takeaways. Inventions are a balance of risk and reward. Now, I think what you're going to find, by the way, I'm just going to give you a little caveat here. A lot of this is common sense. It really is. Okay, anyway, next. Process is absolutely essential. You need a scalable, repeatable process. And you need a process to overcome the primary reasons why startups fail. In addition, the people and the process need to be at the university. I think it's absolutely essential to have the people and the process at the university. Another key factor, the inventors are different from the entrepreneurs. I mean, there's many great examples. I was talking to a wonderful entrepreneur here who was saying, I actually develop biological products, but I am not a biologist. Like, yay, that's great. You're the expert at business. Let the inventors be the expert at the science. And then, once again, research universities are at the center of this whole process. A few other key takeaways. Faculty do not develop products. I think that's really, really important to say. If we give faculty money and expect them to build a product, you're going to get a lab, not a product. In addition, this is really interesting. Money is available. You just need a good process, and you need to be able to show that the dollars that you're putting in to develop a technology, other people will appreciate it, they will agree with it, and they will follow you. And you can increase success in your operations by combining student, faculty, staff, and community intellectual property, by having a really strong network, and then having a great group of master's and MBA students. And I'll talk more about this, but I just wanted to give you the history first. And I've also found that the process is very transferable. We are working on transferring. This process is being transferred in Colombia. It's being transferred in Algeria. In fact, I'm going to Colombia in 2 weeks to help them to set up a fund on the final end of this process. Very, very exciting. So the process, you can do this. So now I want to transition just a little bit. And many of you are kind of wondering, like, wait a second, James, are you going to give us a business lecture here? I'm going to business lecture for just a little bit. So if you would indulge me for just a couple of minutes, I want to talk about the fundamentals of a business, because I think it's absolutely essential. I have a simple brain, so I like to boil things down to its principal components and really try to understand, okay, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? So let's look at the fundamentals of a business. And what a business really does is they sell a solution that solves a need, and they are an accumulation of risks and of benefits. So the whole point of this is, if you're a business, you want to be able to solve a real problem that people have, that they're willing to part with money, and it costs you less to solve that problem than they pay you. And the difference is your profit. Yay, that's great. I got to tell you, many businesses miss this. In fact, a quick question. I know it'll be a challenge with the translator, but what is the number one reason why startups fail in the world today? Number one reason. Yes? Money. No, it's actually not money, but it's a great point. It's related to money. What? Anyone else? Yes, Alvaro. That's exactly it. Is it possible if I could use a mic? I'm just wondering if I could. I'm so sorry. I'm a mobile person. I talk with my hands, and gracias. Thank you so much. I'm very much a mobile person. I like to walk, and I like to feel engaged, and I felt trapped, Anyway, so that's exactly it. We solve problems. And the number one reason why businesses fail, they develop a product or solution for which no one gives a damn. No one cares. That's the number one reason. Isn't that fascinating? Number one reason. Now, money is related to that. So, now it's all about the need. See a need, fill a need. We have robots, Big Weld, robots. Anyway, he always talked about see a need, fill a need. You have to solve a need. And then we talked about all of this, the less. In fact, I always loved, I'm not going to use this example now, but I always love, actually, let's go over it just real quick. A weighted blanket. Are you guys familiar with weighted blankets? A heavy blanket. Why? I actually thought it was crazy initially. And so my family, somebody wanted a weighted blanket. I'm like, why would you want a weighted blanket? Just put more blankets on. Any ideas why? What's the problem you solve? Yes. It helps with anxiety. Exactly. It helps you to feel comfortable. It solves a need. It solves a real need. It's all about identifying the need. So in that particular case, you're selling this blanket and you're thinking, wait, initially I'm selling it to other customers, all the customers who want blankets. No, if you sold it to customers who just wanted blankets, you're going to fail. Sell it to individuals who really want to be, it helps them with their anxiety. So now taking it to the next step, let's just calculate the benefits of a business. And I always like to start from a bottoms-up market calculation. Think of first who your customer is, your beachhead customer, your first customer. How many of them are there? And how much product will they buy in a year? And then, what's it going to cost you to make the product? And what will you charge the customer for the product? And it's fascinating. I got to tell you, these fundamentals are so essential. So I'm an investor. I'm a partner in an investment fund. I'm an angel investor as well. And when I'm talking to companies, I'm asking them then, okay, great. What's your market? And usually they have this information. That's great. But then this is also a little different. It's kind of fascinating. I'll ask them, all right, well, what's it going to cost for you to make the product? And a lot of times they've got a good idea. But then what are you going to charge the customer for the product? And then what's the value of your customer long term? And what's the cost it takes you to acquire that customer? I mean, all of these fundamentals that oftentimes are just missed. Because in the end, your LTV to CAC ratio, long-term value to customer acquisition cost, that's really your business. So those are the benefits of a business. Look at the benefits of a business. Then let's look at the risks. And there's multiple risks here: competition, IP, regulatory. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to move on to more salient things. But it's all about comparing the benefits versus the risks and asking yourself, do the benefits outweigh the risks? And one of the most important things that you can do is say no. You know what? Saying yes in a university is really easy. A lot of universities do that. In fact, when I was at the University of Utah and I was running the office, I was looking at the number of technologies that we said no to in 6 months, and it was 2. And we normally evaluate 300 inventions a year. I'm like, okay, we're messing up. All right, everyone, your goal is to say no to technologies. That was our goal, say no to technologies. Because in order for you to say yes to the great things, you have to say no to the good things. You have to be willing to say no. So now let's launch into building an innovation ecosystem. So I want to talk a little bit about why we're starting companies. And it's all based on the golden rule. You guys know the golden rule? If you have the gold, you make the rules. If you don't have the gold, you don't make the rules. It's just the way it is. So what's interesting about this? Startups feed growth in the world. As a whole, large corporations do not add to growth of the economy. They do not add to growth of the economy. In Indiana, in our ecosystem around the University of Notre Dame, we have some marvelous companies, big companies, very profitable companies, billions of dollars in value. Well, why is it that we don't have this great innovation ecosystem? Because they don't build it. They're the exit. Let's not focus on attracting large business. Let's focus on building small businesses. That's where we need. Another interesting part of this, innovations are very early. They cost a lot of money to develop. And so you have this really interesting dichotomy in business. And I learned this about 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I was talking to a med device executive at a large corporation. And I was asking him, hey, my friend, why aren't you licensing our technology from a university? Why aren't you going to take that technology and you just do it? He said, James, you got to remember, how am I incentivized? If you are a C-suite executive in a large corporation, you get your money from two places. Number one, you get your salary. Number two, you get your bonus. And your bonus is based on the profit and loss of that corporation. Which do you think is bigger, the bonus or the salary? Any guesses? What's bigger, bonus or the salary? The bonus, the bonus. I have a brother who's the chief operating officer of SkyWest Airlines, Mike Thompson. You can look it up, SEC, and see all that kind of stuff. He had a base salary of like $250,000. He had a bonus of $1.5 million a year. The bonus is based on the profit and loss. So what's he going to focus on? What are the executives going to focus on? The profit and loss. Now, wait a second, R&D. R&D hits your profit and loss. So if you want to make more money, you want to make your bonus, what do? Well, you reduce expenses to increase your profit. You reduce R&D. What are we seeing right now with large corporations? Huge trend of reduced R&D. Of course, it makes perfect sense. So now what these companies say is, all right, look, I have dollars, and I have a lot of those dollars because I've been boosting the company up, and I've been padding my own pocket. Great, that's fine. So these corporations, instead of doing a lot of R&D to expand their product portfolio, they expand through acquisition. And that gives us a marvelous opportunity for startups, huge opportunities for startups to build the product, establish the sales, then sell to a large corporation or to private equity firms in order to make money. You're not seeing IPOs, you're not seeing public market exits. You're seeing corporate acquisitions or private equity. So, what's the model of an innovation ecosystem? Number one, you have inventors that are identifying problems and developing solutions. Number two, you have lots of companies that are hiring people at high salaries. You have a high density of entrepreneurs starting companies, a large number of investors that then fund those companies. Companies be acquired, these startups then be acquired by the large corporations, and you have a marvelous industrial base that's very diversified. Okay, does that describe you in Guatemala City? No. It doesn't, it's not really describing us at the University of Notre Dame. It's starting to. So 5.5 years ago, when it came to the University of Notre Dame, and they brought us in, there were 4 of us, and they said, we just want you to make an impact, and we also want to make it so that Notre Dame is a wonderful place to go and that people want to come here, because we had a number one problem. You know what's interesting is number one problem at the University of Notre Dame in hiring faculty, they're located in South Bend, Indiana. And I love South Bend. I think it's a marvelous place. Like Guatemala City, this is a marvelous place. 4th time I've been here, I love this place. It is marvelous. But it's all about having a place where not only are you excited to be at the Valle or Marroquin or these universities, but you're excited to be in the location. So they just said, hey, just make South Bend a better place to live. Don't worry about that. Just do that really quick. So we let them know it's going to take some time. So we built out then this model of an innovation ecosystem. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the model of an innovation ecosystem. It all centers around making impact. The research university identifies problems and researches solutions. This is actually really key. Then the innovators at the research university develop the invention and they disclose it. They take that invention and they give it to some central office at the university, normally technology transfer. This is where it's important. This is the deviation now. The university needs to help you to de-risk that product. Remember we talked about the primary reasons why businesses fail? You need to go over that de-risking. You then need to recruit an entrepreneur to run the company. And by the way, you can expand this beyond just a university, but I'm going to focus it here on a university. So you need to recruit an entrepreneur to run the company. Then you need to start a company and recruit a board of directors. I like to call these the gray hairs, the been theirs, the done that's, they've raised money, they know people. Then you find investors who put dollars in your companies. That company then goes and hires employees. Yay, I'm hiring employees. They start to sell product. They make money. Isn't that wonderful? That's marvelous. And then finally, the company sells, and a couple of key individual things happen. This is really, really cool. So what happens? You sell the corporation. You sell the small business. And now the entrepreneur becomes the next generation of investors. And the inventor becomes the next generation of investors as well. In fact, when I was at the University of Utah, we had about 10 inventors, 10 faculty that were given $1 million checks each year. And I got to tell you, it was really fascinating to see how that encouraged other faculty to invent when they saw their friend drive up in a brand new Ferrari. It was interesting. It was very interesting. So this is a self-sustaining process. Yeah. I'm sorry? Who'd like a Ferrari? Oh, got it. Yes. Well, there you go. All right. Start a business. Get some investors. So what do we do in this overall process? Now, how do we make this work? How have we done this at the University of Notre Dame? This is what the faculty do. So the faculty do this component. Okay. And now in the majority of other universities around the world, they primarily just do a little bit of this. And then there's a gap. There's a gap over here. What we found is you have to do all of this in green. The university has to do all of this. I originally thought when I started at the University of Notre Dame, hey, this is great. I'm going to put this de-risking operation in place. I was telling the university, we just need to do this de-risking operation. And then I wasn't getting entrepreneurs. And I realized we have to find the entrepreneurs. We have to find them. They're not just going to appear out of thin air. They don't. And then I thought, okay, great. Now I have the entrepreneurs. What next? And I thought, well, that's going to be great. Now they're going to start the business. They're going to go and they're going to be successful. No. You need to help them start the company, and you need to recruit the board of directors. And then finally, we found you need to get a network of investors that will invest in the company. And by doing this, that helps you to get a sustainable company. So what we did is we created a fund. We created a network of entrepreneurs. We created a network of alumni, of mentors. We created a network of angel investors, 300 individuals that cut checks. So what do? You input really good people and process, great research and inventors, entrepreneurs, investors, and subject matter experts. And you output more entrepreneurs with every turn, more inventors, more research dollars, companies, and a large operation, base of operations for these large corporations. Absolutely incredible. Very important. Absolutely important. Now, what's interesting is we talk about the Bay Area, we talk about San Francisco, we talk about Madrid, London. They have a high concentration of these key individuals, the investors, the entrepreneurs, and the inventors. So you could go to a coffee shop. You go to a coffee shop and you can hear people talking about entrepreneurship. Last week I was in Salt Lake City. I was giving a talk at the University of Utah, and I had a chance to go have lunch at a local taco place. It was wonderful, Taqueria 27. So I'm sitting at Taqueria 27 with one of my associates, and he goes to use the restroom, and I'm listening to a conversation just adjacent to me, the table adjacent. And they were talking about their startup, and they were talking about getting funding. And that was marvelous. It was so fun to hear because they have a high concentration of entrepreneurs and investors that you can be in a store, you can be in a restaurant, you can be in a coffee shop and hear people talking about it. I don't get that in South Bend yet. We get it in our building, and there's an adjacent coffee shop, you get it. That's what we're talking about. So I want to talk a little bit now about the people and the process at the University of Notre Dame, and this is the Idea Center. So what the Idea Center is, it's a central resource for entrepreneurs at the University of Notre Dame. So we are the tech transfer office. We are the program in student entrepreneurship, STEAM. There's some brochures that were sent out. We are also the technology park. We're all of it. We're the fund. So we've developed a process we affectionately call the commercialization engine, where you can take a concept, de-risk it to the point where you can get it to the market. Kind of looks like scale it, then nail it. Anyway. And this process is divided into 3 basic sections. Number 1, you assess the risk. And all of any of these documents that you would like, I'm happy to give them to you. We give them to people all over the world. So this is our risk assessment document, in which it's traffic lighted, red, yellow, green, and we have 11 risk categories. Then we have de-risking. And in this, we are trying to do 4 things. We're trying to de-risk based on problem validation, the number 1 reason why startups fail. Market validation, where We identify that there's a key problem in the marketplace that beachhead customers have. We then develop that technology to a proof of concept. We then take that proof of concept out to the market and say, hey, customer, you said you had a problem. Does this solve your problem? And if it does, you're ready to move forward. And then you need to have a financial strategy. And this is a back-of-the-napkin financial strategy where you're basically just saying, all right, can I make money? And then finally, we have a process called enterprise acceleration in which we form the company, recruit the entrepreneur, recruit the mentors, board of directors, and we get investment. And what's interesting is we started from scratch at the University of Notre Dame 5.5 years ago, and we now have a network of just under 11,000 people in 17,000 organizations. And these are individuals that we have either met with or emailed with. You can build it. Now let's talk about what phase 2 looks like. So I talked about phase 1, and I got to tell you, phase 1 is a lot of work. I'm just being really open with you. It takes work. When we were looking at trying to build all of this, it takes a lot of work to do this. It really does. But phase 2, this is where it starts to get really quite exciting. Because in phase 2, the inventors will meet the entrepreneurs on their own. Experienced entrepreneurs will meet the investors and the inventors and the entrepreneurs on their own. So now you've started a company all on their own, and you get mentors and a board of directors. And in addition, then, the investors meet those companies and they get funding in them. Okay, so what's the key part of it? It's all about density. Density is what we're talking about here. You have to have the density. So what does that mean? That means if you want to have a large geographical area that is your innovation ecosystem, you need to have a high concentration of investors, inventors, and entrepreneurs. If you have a low number of them, you need to decrease the geographical distribution and increase density. It's about density, not overall numbers. So, once again, this process can just continue when you have density, because they're going to interact. It was interesting, Alvaro, my good friend, we've known each other for about 10 years now, and we were talking about how we met, and it was this really convoluted way of how we met, and it was really kind of cool. Okay, that's really awesome. That's a lot how entrepreneurs and inventors can connect, as well as to investors. But it takes a lot of work, and it doesn't happen very often. So how do you increase the probabilities of this reaction taking place? Sorry, I'm a chemist at heart, and so I'm thinking about how do you increase the probability that reactions are going to take place. You're going to catalyze those reactions. You're going to increase the density and put those molecules, put those people in closer proximity. So let's talk a little bit about the impact now. And if I were you, I would be saying, okay, James, all right, put up or shut up. Tell us what you did. All right, so I'm happy to do that. At the University of Notre Dame, in 178 years of the university being in operation, 168 startups were created. In the last 5.5 years, we've started 144 of them. 109 of those startups are still active. 32 of those are active in the region. Because that's what we want. We want to build an innovation ecosystem. Look, we have a challenge where the students who come in are brilliant, they're amazing, and they get a lot of high-paying jobs to go elsewhere. So we're trying to keep them in the area. So here are the numbers of startups that were launched, just so you can get a rough feel and the distribution. Now this is, we had to do this slide based on calendar year. Our fiscal year is an average really of 30 to 32 a year. So we're starting these companies. The companies are staying alive. This is also really interesting. We found that we have an average of 65% viability of our startups. So 65% of them are active. 3/4 of the faculty startups are alive. And the students, it's honestly about half, which kind of makes sense. So what's interesting is we've now shifted a little bit, and the student focus is, let's help students start a company in the safe environment of the University of Notre Dame. And we're seeing some amazing things. We're seeing these students get incredible jobs because they've started and they've failed at companies. It doesn't matter that they've been successful. Being successful pads your pocket. Having the experience gets you the job. Okay, reported investment that's raised. This is what's been reported to us. This is actually really fascinating. Look at that trend. I mean, isn't that fascinating? And this is in 2021. Now, 2021, I'll be honest, was a pretty damn good year. Like, we were able to raise capital. It was really easy. We were getting funding rounds raised in a matter of 48 hours. It's awesome. Now it's taking us about 2 months. But every single one of our companies that we want to get funded gets funded. Every single one. Now, this is what's fascinating. 54 million in the last 12 months out of a total of 105.6 million. 51% just last year alone. And we're on track to do something similar this year, even in a really poor economy. Okay, revenue. 32 of those startups have sales. 9.1 million in the last 12 months out of a total of $31 million. We're starting to see some revenue. Here's some reported product sales. Now, what's interesting is, anyway, yes, you can see the trends. I'll let you see it from there. These are the number of full-time jobs reported by the startups. So we're starting to see the jobs start to increase, which is interesting because the average salary of those full-time jobs is $90,000 a year United States, in an area that the average is 32,000 US. 3 times the average. Very, very cool. Number of part-time jobs, we're seeing part-time jobs increase. Oh, here's the average salaries. You're seeing those average salaries increase, which is wonderful. Full-time jobs in Indiana. Obviously, I would like to see more jobs in Indiana, but we are seeing an increase. And this is where you see I've got a problem. Number of jobs in Indiana as a percentage of total jobs. We're seeing a lot of jobs leaving the area, so I'm being honest with you. This is an area where I need to do a better job. So we're working on that. So next steps in Guatemala. I'm a big believer in action that comes out of this. You want an innovation ecosystem here. I think it's really important to evaluate the resources in Guatemala City. I think you should be looking at region or university specific, and it's all about the density. I think if you try to make this for the entire country of Guatemala, it's going to fail. I'm just being honest with you. I think you're going to find from me, I'm going to be a straight shooter. I'm terrible at playing poker and bluffing. I can't bluff. I can't. So I just don't play poker. I play blackjack instead. Anyway, so make it region, university specific. I think it's going to be absolutely important. We don't need surveys. We don't need, just evaluate the resources that you have on the ecosystem and identify the gaps and then fill in those gaps. And it's all about saying, okay, where are the gaps that we have in this model of an ecosystem? Let's see. I'm going to go back here to the slide, the circle. Here we go. It's all about identifying the gaps that you have in the process. And by the way, just like a chemist would say, there's a sequence, there's a process. So a lot of times what happens when I go into these ecosystems, they say, well, James, it's about money. We don't have money, so I need to get money. And they focus on getting money, and they focus on getting money, and then they get the money, and then nothing happens. Well, yeah, because you have to have the companies. And I got to tell you, if you have the companies, if you have the entrepreneurs that have been de-risked, the money always follows. The money always follows. So it's about identifying what gaps you have in this process. Are you really doing good at identifying problems and developing solutions? Identifying innovations. So we did this exercise in June in Algeria. So I went over to Algiers, spent about a week, and with members of the university. It was funded by the United States Embassy, which great opportunities to do this to get funding. USAID as well. So we evaluated the gap. And what was interesting, so the Algerians, they did a really good job of saying, we need an ecosystem. Okay, great. So they created a research university, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to create Sidi Abdullah, amazing research university. And the whole thought is, we have great Algerian researchers all throughout the world. Let's recruit them to come back to Algeria and do great research here in the country. Okay, that's wonderful. So yeah, they have great inventions. The university is 2 years old. In a week, I identified 4 inventions that I was actually really interested in. I thought it'd be really cool. Okay, that's great. They don't have an issue there. Then the government said, let's create an investment network. So they created an investment network. That's awesome. So I go into the country and I'm talking to the investment network and I said, all right, well, who does the de-risking? Who does that work? And they said, well, not us. I don't do that. So I went to the university and said, okay, university, who does the de-risking? Well, not us. I don't do that. All right, well, if nobody's going to do it, how can you expect to actually create the innovation ecosystem? So the next step that we've identified is, and I've got a counterpart that's going in December. I need a break. I've been traveling for 2 months straight. So first week in December, we're going to go and talk to the faculty about what an invention really is. That's where we identified the training. The next step is going to be then doing the de-risking side of it. Somebody's got to do the de-risking. So this is the model. Are there any questions?